I'm Ricky Rocket. If you're looking for an old car, I'll find it for you.
Hi, I'm Andy. I'll fix these things, and I'll show you how to also.
Dudes, I'm like Karl, the intern.
And now it's time for Andy's Brain Dump.
Okay. So if I go look at this 66 442, and it's got the E block with the 400, this is a very rare engine.
Right.
And if it runs,
It would be very
we've
hard.
hit the jackpot.
It would be very hard to replace. Now, in '66, there were actually 3 different configurations. It's the only year they did it. You had 66, and they all had B heads.
Mm-hmm.
You had a 66 with a quadrojet. You had a 66 with a tri-power, an L69. Or you had a 66 with a tri-power and factory ram air with a scoop in the bumper. And it's even more rare. 67 W30 had a 400 with ram air, this right here. And that's one of the favorite Oldsmobiles, is those W30s. These later W30G blocks were not well regarded. 70 W30s are among the legendary stuff. They're right up there with LS6s because Olds finally put the ram air with the big cubic inches, big valves, and the whole thing, which they could not do before because they were limited. Hurst Oldsmobiles in 68-9 also had functional ram air, but then again, it wasn't a 442, it was its own unit.
How many of those Hearsts did they make in those early years?
Not many. Actually, 71 and 72 W30s were actually more rare than a 455 Hearst. Although, after 70, they went from 10 1/4 or higher compression down to lower numbers. So a 71 and 72 W30, even though they're ram air, they still don't make as much power as the earlier motor with the D-head small chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Or the earlier ones. The most highly regarded 442 is the 66 W30 with 3 2 barrels. 67, there was no tri-power option. These are all going to be quadrojets.
Okay.
All of them. There's nothing else after 66.
Okay.
If it has a 2 barrel on it, and it's a big block like this, you figure it's out of a big car. So if you look and you see a 455 with the C head and a 2 barrel or something like that, it is probably something that somebody's put in something else.
Okay.
400s are rare enough that you usually only see them in 442s that are real. This engine is too valuable to put in a Cutlass, generally speaking. There are exceptions to rules.
Okay.
Most 66 442s have 400s now. 67, not so much. They made a lot more of them. One thing to bear in mind with any 442 after 66 is they all had turbo 400s if they were automatics. They didn't have anything else. 65 and 6 had what was called a Jetaway. It was a 2-speed. It had a variable pitch converter, and it was unique to that, and it is not a Powerglide. People think it is, but it's not. It's actually based on a Buick design.
Okay. So you're telling me that this screaming car that we went out in earlier today, this 1970 442 with the 455 in it, the 66, if we find it with the original 400 in it, that's even a faster car? Is it...
Well,
It's a smaller engine.
Yes and no. It will go to a lot higher RPM. Now, the thing is, the advantage of a car with a longer stroke is it's got more torque.
Okay.
It's just got more low-end current, but it slows down the revability. And also, longer strut motors, and people forget this, have more ring drag, and the reciprocating masses are heavier.
I don't know what that means, those words you just said.
Bigger crank, more weight.
Okay.
I was told, and I can't verify this, that in 68, when they broke records with a Hurst Oldsmobile, they had to blow up like 8 of them before they could break a record. Okay. 66 400 W30 tri-powers, they'd run the heck out of them, And I've never heard of one breaking under any conventional circumstance. Now, there's a whole industry, I don't want to name any names, that people modify 455s so that they can rev higher. You've still got this problem, though. Oldsmobile was not targeting high revving engines. They made these specific in those years, but later they only wanted to make one big block and one small block, a 350. Now, a 350 was not ever available in a 442 unless it was in 1972. If you've ever saw a 442 and it had a number on the head, like a 5 or 7, you would automatically be suspicious, and you have to dig deeper to see whether it was a 350 or 455, because a casual observer, it's a little bit hard to tell. They look similar. Most of the parts are the same. They're fully interchangeable in the engine bay, the valve covers, all kinds of things fit. The engines will differ in color depending on the year, although people can generally change the colors. 455 Hearsts were always red. These were always blue. These were always copper. 403 was later, small block. These were always an entirely different shade of blue than the 455. It's an easy way, and a 350 is gold. 400 is copper. So it's an easy way to tell from afar what it's got, assuming that somebody hasn't painted a 400 blue, which I've never seen, or this is early red, which is the same as a Hearst. Hearst, ironically, didn't have a blue block. All W30s, 455s are always like that. 400s were always copper, whether they be E, G, D head, or C head. It was all the same.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go out there. I will take a bunch of pictures, send them to you on your phone.
Please do.
Because I think I got enough to look. I'll make sure that the 66 has a 400 in it. I will double check the block code and the head code.
Look for this behind the oil filler tube.
Mm-hmm.
And look for this. You need that right there.
Okay.
This you'll never find on the used market now. This you'll see a lot of because people didn't like them, and they took them out even early on and replaced them with an F block. So these are sitting around. Now the thing is, from my personal experience, and I have quite a bit of it, these run significantly better than these do. And also, this series of cars, 67 is more of a boxy kind of car. 68 through 70 is more like the shape of a rounded Nova or later GTO or something along those lines. I've actually never seen a G block in a 67 or 6, and I've never seen an E block in a 68. I'm not saying it can't be done, but nobody does that. When people usually switch Oldsmobile engines, they usually put 455s because they're common. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes this, never that, sometimes this, never that. E, possibly. B, probably not. A head, there's some other differences on that, and people don't use it at all.
Okay.
Because of the cam angle actually makes the push rods not clear some of the early heads. It's not to say people can't grind them, but that's an issue with A and B heads. C heads were never on a 45 block. All 45 blocks will also, I don't know if I said this, have the small lifter. B and A's will always have the big lifter. Tornadoes, sometimes they could vary from car to car. I don't want to get into that because they're not 442s, and Tornadoes are always going to have 425s until 68. And then they're always going to have 455s until mid-70s. They had a 403. One thing to bear in mind about Oldsmotors is all the early ones had forged cranks. Now, all the later ones had cast cranks, with very few exceptions. There was one year, 68, that had a forged 4 1/4 crank, but it's extremely rare. And after that, they all had cast cranks. I think even a W30, I think, had a cast crank. So something to bear in mind, and as I mentioned, you can put the smaller 425 crank and rods in a 455 block, and you end up with a 425 or bigger if you bore it. Then the advantage is you have the smaller lifter. This thing is extremely expensive. It's hundreds of dollars. Whereas the smaller lifter is similar to a Chevy, so it's very cheap.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the information.
Sure thing.
And I'll be in touch. I'm going to head out now and go take a look at that car, and I'll give you a shout.
Good luck, sir.
So I'm heading out to take a look at a very rare 1966 Oldsmobile 442 that Andy and I just talked a little bit about. I'm going to go make sure that the block designation as well as the header designation are what we're looking for. It's supposed to be the original 400 that came with the car. So hopefully this is what we're looking for, because we've really got to find this car. Dude, it's a road trip. Hello, I was just checking out this 1952 door Mercury. Beautiful color, excellent specimen. Karl the intern, and I are down here in Florence, Colorado, where they have one of the finest old car shows in the state down here today. In a few hours, these streets are going to be teeming with hot rods, muscle cars, rat rods, people walking dogs, eating corn dogs, cotton candy stuck to kids' hair. It's going to be a beautiful scene in a few hours. And we're going to be here to capture all of it. And we're going to invite you to please watch the Lost Highway Rocketeers. This episode is Florence, Colorado, their yearly hot rod show. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is a 1964 GTO. Considered one of the first muscle cars. It's 389 4-barrel, some of them had tri-powers. This particular one is a convertible, which is kind of unique. Looks like it has bucket seats. Got a 4-speed in it. A lot of those early ones did. Black vinyl interior. Looks like it's a pretty sharp car. Nice finish. 64 GTO was a very well loved car. It was one of the first intermediates that GM built. Here's a 66 442. Don't know what kind of engine that has in it. It's probably a 455. If the case, it looks like it's a pretty sharp car. It's done in kind of took a bronze, almost like a House of Color type car. It's a 2-door post. Got some custom wheels on it. It's a lot like the one Rick is working on right now. Bad Pony is what it said. Bad Penny. Yeah, interesting. Looks like it's got a pretty nice paint job on it. The 68 Roadrunner 383. It's a very, very popular muscle car. Some of these had Hemis. This one doesn't. It looks like it's the base model, the bench seat. So it's got a 4-speed in it, which is good. It's the post model also. Kind of looks like original shade of dark green. It's got the right wheels on it. It's like a pretty sharp ride. Get the little running Roadrunner on the back tail. That of course is factory. Here is a Ford GT40, probably about a 1965 model. It's probably a kit, although it's hard to say. It's got some pretty nice wheels on it. Definitely exotic. Looks like it might have a big block Ford in it. Something it's got 4 what looks like Webers. It's a kind of a stock looking interior in it. It's kind of the way they really were. Looks like it's pretty true to form. Got some newer tires on it. Easy engine access on these things if you can afford one of them. Interesting set of headers. There's the other side of the Webers. 1 barrel per cylinder on those things. Quite fun to tune. But they did work when they worked well. There's the front of it. It's a 1957 Ford Thunderbird. Then probably a 312. It looks like it's maybe done in the original shade of red. Correct hubcaps. Definitely a sharp ride. These cars are extremely popular. Particularly one looks like it has a Ford-O-Matic in it. Nicely done machine there. Here's a 71 Camaro. Got a big block in it of some type, probably a 572 I would guess. It looks like it has aluminum heads. 4-barrel, that car is probably a mover. Looks like it's done in a Mulsanne blue. Looks like it's a factory color, believe it or not. In the early 70s they had that blue, and man, it sure looked nice. They had that on Chevelles. Nova is very attractive. It's got a black interior with an automatic, kind of a custom seats and steering wheel in there. Surely Camaros are nice because they have dual taillights. They, of course, did that through 73, and that's part of the reason they're so popular, because the later ones just didn't have looks. It's a 70 Dodge Challenger 340 TA 6-pack. That's kind of a legendary car that's got some racing heritage behind it. 340 6-pack is probably one of the best packages any muscle car ever had. Chrysler really had it on that year. This is a satellite, mid-70s I would say. It looks kind of customized. Hard to tell really kind of what engine that had. This is a 1970 Cutlass. It looks like it's got a 455. Looks all correct there. It's a convertible, of course. This looks like it's done in a Viking blue. Kind of a silver or a pearl type interior. Looks like it's got the correct steering wheel, console, automatic. Looks like a clean machine. These cars are quite popular these days. Looks like it's got nice chrome and everything. It looks like it's done well. Here's a 34 Ford 2-door sedan. Hard to tell what engine's in that. Probably a small block Chevy, most of those are. Suicide doors. Looks like it's done extremely well. These cars are kind of cult classic. They're a car that was pretty common through the 50s, and then a lot of them were recycled, fortunately. A lot of the Model A's in these types of cars were scrapped in the early 40s because of the war effort. They wanted all the steel they could get, and it's a shame because some of the most beautiful Fords were ever made were that vintage.
So I just took a look at a 1966 Oldsmobile 442. Very cool car. Made sure that the engine was numbers matching 400 as advertised, and indeed it was. Car's in pretty good shape. It's a 2-speed Jetaway transmission. Very neat car. Blue interior, and it's supposed to be, originally it was a sort of a dark gray, smoky blue kind of color. So it should be an interesting project. I sent a bunch of pictures over to Andy just to confirm. I like to run things past him before we go ahead and buy a car. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this is the one we're looking for. So we will keep you posted on that.